What does it really take to build something extraordinary? Behind every thriving business is a powerful mix of grit, creativity, risk, and the relentless drive to keep going when others would stop. Welcome to the Next Venture Alliance Show, the podcast where entrepreneurs, innovators, and trusted advisors come together to uncover the stories and strategies behind remarkable ventures. With your host, Oliver Kotelnikov. Whether you're building, buying, scaling, or selling, this is your space to learn, get inspired, and prepare for your next venture.
Glad to have you with us today for the Next Venture Alliance Show. My name is Oliver Kotelnikov. I'm an entrepreneur, a storyteller, a mergers and acquisitions advisor, and a business and commercial real estate broker at IBA. On this show, we talk with founders, business owners, self-starters, industry leaders, and the trusted advisors who support them on this journey. Together, we explore both the strategic and the human side of entrepreneurship. And with us today is a longtime friend and the owner of Better Living Through Coffee, which is the coolest coffee shop on earth, in my opinion. He also owns Port Townsend Coffee Roasters, which supplies Better Living Through Coffee and many other coffee shops. Can I say cool beans, or is that too much of a cheesy pun?
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to say it. Cool beans.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate you joining. I've known you for a little while now, and typically an entrepreneurial journey we'd start someplace at where the business end of it began, but your story is, as we discussed, to me is fascinating because you're probably your childhood and how you grew up, and your life trajectory is probably as far from being a business owner and a coffee business owner as it could have been. I mean, you've had 2 or 3 lifetimes before this.
Sure.
So you grow up in Berkeley, California, mid to late 70s, kind of a bohemian atmosphere. You're exposed to all kinds of interesting influences early on. You become independent, you travel, you're citizen of the world. I mean, talk about how things began a little bit in Berkeley.
Sure. Well, you can only imagine the Berkeley in the 70s is exactly how you probably, it was even more interesting than the movies, portrayed it. Just lots of different lifestyle choices. And, I was pretty young when I was there at first. So it was all just kind of a blur. But it definitely left an impact on me. As I mentioned before, one of my earliest memories was going to the original Pete's Coffee in North Berkeley and hanging out there on the weekends with my family and I don't even remember if they had hot chocolate, but my parents would let me have sips of their coffee.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why Pete's and Starbucks were so popular, and that was kind of the germ of all of that. That one store was the beginning of the whole coffee trade that we now experience every day.
So let's say that original Starbucks location in the market, like this is the original Pete's, the first ever Pete's.
This was it. Pete, originally it was the same shop. Pete, he wasn't Italian. He was from somewhere else in Europe, and I can't remember exactly where, but he used to fix machines for other people that made coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no actual retail coffee for sale. It was just simply.
Pete's was a equipment repair shop.
Equipment, yeah. He would sell. He was a vendor for equipment. He would repair equipment. He was an expert at the equipment, the roasting equipment to create coffee, to roast coffee.
I see.
And I guess he did such a good job. And he also, I remember reading somewhere a quote where he was confused by the American. Kind of the Americana concept of people in the 50s, 60s would brag about how many cups of coffee they would have in one day. And
true, it is a little bit of a competition in this country.
And he was like, "Well, why would you want that much coffee? It should 1 or 2 should do." And that's more of the Italian, the European style of drinking coffee. You drink it throughout the day, but you're not just trying to go to the restroom every hour because of how much liquid you're
It,
hydrating
it's not
yourself
it's
with.
not a competition, right? And
No.
it takes longer to drink a cup of coffee in Europe than
Yeah.
it does a 39-ounce Americano here in America.
Yeah, it was more diner coffee at that point, and
Yeah.
Folgers and things like that. And because of that, I guess he decided to start selling it out of his shop, the one that I used to go to in the 70s. And it became quite popular quite quickly. And probably after I was going there when I was a little kid, I'd have to look at the dates, but around the same time, before Howard Schultz at Starbucks, there was another guy who really kind of started Starbucks. And Howard is one that spearheaded it to make it what it is today. And the original guy, I'd have to look up his name. Whoever's listening, you can look it up. Uh, uh, was inspired and said, we should open more of these. And Pete was quite hesitant about it. He didn't really care about that. He was kind of more of a Zen master purist about it all. And I don't think he wanted to be around that many people. It wasn't really interesting to him. So he trained the guy that basically started Starbucks, and then he took that information back to Seattle, started the Pike's Place store. I don't think the Pike's Place one was actually even the original one. That they kind of flagshipped it after the fact and called it that. But there was another location in another part of Seattle that was the original.
Yeah, there's
Um,
always that origin story that there's
yeah,
one
yeah,
that everybody knows, and then there's one that it actually
the fact
is.
of their
Yeah,
first lease and all that stuff.
right.
But anyways, I digress. The culture was started then in the 70s, and we lived less than 5 minutes away, so we would walk there on the weekends, and it was just a part of our, enjoying living where we lived. And the coffee was quite good, and I remember I really enjoyed it so much so that I would sneak extra sips when no one was looking because I like the taste of it. And maybe this is me even elaborating a little bit more than what actually, but this is my memory about coffee being a little kid
This was your first memory of
around
where
coffee.
you and coffee first crossed paths.
Yes, yes, and also it was my first memory of people kind of congregating and relaxing and enjoy. I was a little kid. We weren't going to restaurants that much or bars at all. And so this was a place where it was social, and there was a
Right.
lot of comings and goings and people, and everyone was sitting outside. It was a pretty special time. The 70s in Berkeley. The weather was really nice, and there's a lot of oak trees, and it was a lovely. The spot's still there. So,
And
so yeah.
it sounds very time and place, and in a sense, very different than what a coffee shop is today. But I would say that when I first walked into your coffee shop, Better Living, it sort of channels that a little bit. I mean, there's that energy.
I could say that I planned it that way, but that's
Yeah.
just. But I agree with you. It does have that, and maybe that's the whole foreshadowing or whatever you want to call it, uh,
Hmm.
destiny part of it. But back to your original question, yeah, I really didn't have any plans into diving into coffee outside of I enjoyed it, and I had tastes about what I did or didn't like. But it was just like everyone. The truth of the matter is now I only drink 1 cup a day now. I
Hmm.
don't even when I need to taste it for cuppings or anything, that's fine, but that's definitely just work, and I usually spit it out because I don't wanna get too wired. Our coffee's really, really strong, so I can't.
No, your coffee is actually phenomenal in terms of product
Yeah,
quality, and back
yeah,
to kind of that difference in the European view, or maybe some other how other parts of the world view coffee.
yeah,
The product quality is one, but we keep already looping back to this time kind of issue of it's how it's consumed, right? It's
yeah,
not, so there is a rushed aspect to, let's get it as quickly as possible, as much of it as possible, and preferably as affordably as possible with as much other stuff mixed in as possible.
yeah,
Versus, I think that your business in this, based on what you're describing, there's a time, there's kind of the culture around it is different. And the
it's
time
really
aspect of it is super important because you don't
yeah,
drink coffee fast, right? I mean, that's kind of the
you
first
shouldn't.
no-no of coffee, I think,
Yeah,
is it's not meant to be, as you said, consumed, with a trip to the bathroom to follow as quickly as possible.
it should be consumed like a glass of wine. Yeah, yeah, more so than chugging some water before you go to the gym, something like that, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what's resonating about your product and your business is that it's not just a different cup of coffee. It's a different product. In that cup is many different things, and one of them is, it's culture and how it's consumed, and kind of an essence of what coffee is all about.
I agree. I have a hard time kind of pontificating over things like that because I fear that I start to sound like some of the people that I don't really enjoy listening to about how I have the corner on this or how I've figured this out. So I'm always a little weary of kind of like giving my dream state about, like the North Star of
Yeah,
what I'm doing and all of that. But I guess one way that I sum it up sometimes to people is when people come in and they're a little hesitant because of the price point or whatever. I really, especially if I'm behind the counter, which is rare these days. But if I am, I really try to lean into it, not as a salesman, but more of like, you should just try this, and
yeah.
I'm not going to tell you anything. Just drink it, because your taste buds, they don't care which side that you vote on. They don't care any of that stuff. Either it tastes good to you or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't, right? And the
And that's
same
a
can be
great
said about art.
equalizer. It's a
Like when you
beautiful
look
thing.
at
Yeah, yeah.
you look at a piece of art, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Either you
before
like it or
someone
you,
starts telling you what it is, do
yeah,
you
yeah.
like it or
You
not?
just look at
Right?
it. Same with music, and yeah,
Or wine. You mentioned wine, right? How many
yeah,
times in a restaurant do you see, they're still pouring the wine, or they're already in the person's ear about what it is, what they should be tasting.
yeah. They're tainting
Just
it.
pour it and let them taste
I'll
it.
let you know if I like it or not. Yeah.
Correct.
No, I
Yeah.
completely
Don't
agree with
don't
that.
care how much it costs or how many award it's won. I can taste
Yeah,
it and let you know what I think. And that's probably the most honest product interaction.
that's my point with that. I really I stress with my staff that you should be competent. You should know what you're talking about in a relaxed manner, but it should never feel like you're lecturing anyone about anything ever. I
Right.
really, like they're not allowed, but it's fine if they do art on it, but it's not required. And I personally would prefer they don't. It's not a
Right.
magic trick. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I don't need to look at a leaf or a heart or anything like that. You go ahead if you want to express yourself and it's not too busy. That's the other thing. We're incredibly busy, so it's just like, yeah, you have to. This isn't Tokyo. You don't need to do that here. Just make sure it tastes good, and that's for me is what's the most important thing. I was actually talking to my bean broker about this the other day. How I got cornered by someone at a dinner about coffee, and no fault to them. They were really enthusiastic about it, and I wasn't able to answer some of their questions in a way that I think that satisfied them. That I knew as much as I
Yeah.
should. And I
Hmm.
was saying, like, I was kind of recoiling from the conversation. I was like, I don't really want to talk to you anymore
I
about
don't
this.
I don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it in this way, like I'm sniffing a cork.
Yeah.
And the woman, my broker, she's been doing this for 35 years. She says, then that's the outer fringe. The people that actually do this for a living, they don't talk like that. And
Right.
that's the first time I ever heard that. I was like, oh, good, I feel better.
Hmm.
I don't need to be up on all the trends and all that crap, because if you do it for a living, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that part of it goes away. You
It
you, you,
fades away.
perceive, you perceive it differently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But back to your background a little bit, and I think maybe what's in your approach and in the coffee business today. So
yeah,
you have world traveling experience. You spent time in Portugal, Russia, Caribbean at a fairly early age.
yeah,
Exposed to various influences. You were part of the Harvest Festival with your
yeah. That
dad,
was
which
my
is sort
dad's
of the
business.
maybe the retail aspect of things. What was that
Entrepreneurial.
experience like?
It was definitely I was always surrounded by entrepreneurs. The best way to describe it was all based out of Northern California, the Bay Area. He was kind of like the Bill Graham of crafts fairs. You
The
know who Bill
Bill
Graham is?
Billy Graham. Okay,
You
so
know
he
Bill
was
Graham, no, like
the
the Fillmore, like the Grateful Dead and all the big shows
yeah.
that he did in the 60s and 70s. The guy who presented all of those, the producer, his name was Bill Graham, and he owned a couple clubs, venues in the Bay Area that were quite popular and famous now. But my dad was kind of the crafts, the arts and crafts version of Bill Graham.
And so the Harvest Festival was kind of this
Yeah,
traveling
show.
venue of retail arts and crafts.
It would take
that you were,
over like huge, massive convention centers from like Thanksgiving to Christmas. And there was some multiple cities on the same weekend. And it was probably by the end, it's kind of its heyday, at least 500 exhibitors and 10,000 plus people a day, uh, paying customers to it. So it was quite a scene. It was like a rock concert basically for people to buy Christmas gifts. And after a while, people were just a bit religious about it, where they would come every year, and they had all of these like famous like bluegrass musicians and singers and all these foods. So it was quite an event, and I literally I grew up around that from age as early as I can remember into my 20s.
so this was you like 8, 9 years old. You're setting up retail stands. You're interacting with
I wasn't
customers.
doing any of that. I was helping my dad in the office.
Oh, office.
Yeah, yes, because he was the producer of it all, so he was basically fielding all the problems and issues and just kind of organizing the whole event. It started Friday and went through Sunday, and by the end of it, that'd be over 30,000 people that would have attended. And then you could just imagine how many questions or security issues or so many scenarios with that level of madness.
So he's kind of the face of it, and you're handling like
I
back
wasn't. I
end.
was just the kid
Yeah.
observing it all. But my point is, from all I had ever knew was to be an entrepreneur. That was normal to me. A regular day job, I wasn't exposed to that.
Hmm.
So we would end up being at the festival from like 6 in the morning till 11 at night, and so these kind of big pushes to get through the event was normal for me. That was normal way to take care of business. There was no clocking out. You
Right.
you, you
Yeah.
finished when it was finished.
And such an important trait for entrepreneurs. Like, you
Yeah.
hear all this like work-life balance. I need to have
No,
my
no,
like that. Yeah.
no.
That doesn't exist. Never
Not,
did.
not if
Yeah.
you want to win.
Yeah.
If there's a healthy competition in your market, which, gosh, unless you're some kind of innovator, which, hey, that's great if you figured out something where you're alone and you have the time to clock in and out. There's someone else that's always doing a better job than you, and really to keep your place at the table, so to speak, you got to work really hard at whatever it is. There's so many people on this planet now that have a similar or even a better idea. And sometimes, the reason why you get to keep your place, the pole position, and the business, so to speak, is that you were there first. And so you have to keep you have to keep earning it, or else
Mhm.
someone else is going to come along and swipe you out of the way.
Because I mean, your reputation, it's only as good as the last cup of coffee you serve, right? You can't talk about, look at my Yelp reviews or my
No,
reviews 3 years ago, right? Someone's
no, no, no,
doing so.
no resting on your laurels. Yeah,
So
yeah,
obviously, I mean, you're kind of all in on without knowing it on this entrepreneurial mindset. But you're still a school age kid, so that probably cuts into
yeah.
school and your typical responsibilities of that age. I mean, your motivation ebbs and flows. You're class president and captain of the lacrosse team one day, and and then you're getting kicked out
And
for
I'm getting picked out next. Yeah,
the
yeah,
next.
yeah. You're
Yeah.
talking about the bio
You
extension.
sort of
Yeah,
make occasional appearances in school, and
yeah, yeah. Well, I was a bit of a wild card, and I'm sure that there's so many stories about entrepreneurs being that way, where,
sure.
to some respect, as far as keeping my attention, it's a bit self-serving, and until you learn to have some manners and how to be out in the world, you come off as dismissive
Hmm.
people, because you just don't want to listen, or you don't care, you don't see the value in what they're doing right then. And being 14 and raising your hand and asking bigger questions about, like, why are you showing me this, why are you teaching me this? It's embarrassing for the teacher to
Right.
have questions like that in the class, and it's unacceptable behavior. And when you're young, you're full of vinegar, so you ask questions like that, and you don't care.
But you're
So
challenging their authority every day. You're undermining them. They're
yeah,
making their
I,
job hard. So what was it that they said that Ben's a brilliant kid, but he doesn't seem to be interested in learning or
following the
being here?
rules. He doesn't feel like following the rules. Yeah, and the one teacher that was kind of the straw that broke the back. She said that yeah, when he doesn't like what you have to say, he goes for the jugular,
Mm-hmm.
and that always stuck with me. I was like, oh wow, that's a pretty poignant thing for you to say about me.
Was it
So
true?
yeah, well, it is true, and that kind of instinct also really lends itself to being an entrepreneur because that's, hopefully you're a good king as opposed to a bad king, but that definitely is a part of going to war, so to speak. The war of success is that cunning to resolve.
You know, isn't it amazing that when your kids are just even throughout life, you display a characteristic or a character trait, and somebody will say, "You're selfish. You are a barbaric," and then you get into the world of business, and
And
people will
that's
turn it into. They'll say,
celebrate.
you're an opportunistic, like you employ good strategy,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
smart, you're ahead of the curve. All of a sudden it's really the same trait, right, that
yeah.
you've always had. Just depends
How
on
it's
which context
delegated.
it's in, how it's presented. All
Yeah,
of a sudden you're a brilliant businessman who saw the opportunity that no one saw and took it,
took
right,
it. Yeah.
versus being difficult.
I mean, I guess to one way to kind of phrase that to kind of sum up what you're saying is if you're in a let's say a tribe, a Native American tribe, or something before modern day times, before the combustion engine, and you guys are basically living off the land, so to speak. They wanted the kids to keep the peace as far as around the teepee or the fire, or just kind of like not be troublesome while everyone was doing their work. But as soon as they become of age, especially men, they needed to go hunt, and their lives were on the line to kill the saber tooth or whatever was coming at them, where they were chasing after. And so it's the same thing. It's just it switches. Suddenly, like, no, to survive, and for us to survive, you need to be that
Yeah,
way.
and can you produce results, right? You're not going to
Oh
be in
yeah,
business very long, regardless of your philosophies, whatever they are, if they're not delivering. If they're
that's a lot.
producing good results, then people turn them into virtues. If they're not
Yes,
producing results, they'll say, you know what, you need to
this isn't
change.
really working out.
Yeah, you need to change these settings, right? Your landlord's going to come
Exactly.
to you and say, Ben, you're a great guy, but you got to pay the rent, you
Yeah,
know?
no, sometimes I have to say that to my wife about luckily I try my best to shield the income and the outcome of bills, but sometimes when she brings something up, I'm like, the Amex card does not care. It just wants its money, and it does not care. Any of that, it's just, it does not care. And
Yeah,
that's the same thing as like being out in the wild hunting for it. Like, the thing that you're trying to kill does not want to be killed.
yeah.
So it's the same idea. It's just like you got to keep it all straight.
And it actually wants to kill you,
It wants to
for,
kill you. It's trying to defend itself because you're trying to eat it. And,
yeah.
and being out in the world, as far in modern day times, oddly enough, paying your Amex card and making sure you make payroll and all of the things are needed all the time. So really, my biggest job most days now is keeping the peace. I have 27 employees for both businesses, and my job is to basically cool the place out and make sure that everyone's relaxed
Hmm.
and that everything's taken care of. And that's my job, and really it's just like being like a film actor or anything. You're putting on a show half the time because that's not how you feel. But sharing that with them is not going to be constructive in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you can't walk in and say, look,
I'm having a
I'm
rough
really
day.
scared. The house is on fire. We're
Yeah,
all going down.
yeah.
What do you guys suggest we do? Right, you need to bring some leadership. I mean, how do you do that? What are some of the skills that you employ to steady the ship?
Yeah. Um, uh, I tend to overpay my employees, my long-term employees, and over time, that's created a culture where they leave me alone, and they really like their paycheck, and so they take me seriously, and so we have a kind of a match to rapport about it. And over the years, as time goes on, they get great at their job. Sometimes they're bored, working at a coffee shop or roasting coffee. It's not everyone's life dream, But living in a quaint little seaside town like we live in, and actually making a good living working 3/4 time and making what most people are having to grind out at a regular 9 to 5, 8-hour day job, there's an appreciation for that. And after a while, you build the team that kind of like helps support that. And the long way around to answer your question, they help you figure it out. They what's the term I use sometimes? They predict your needs, and they protect uh, what you have going on. They protect your interest, and they predict your needs, and that's
So, I
what you're.
mean, you sort of impart your vision of what you would like the culture of the company to be.
Yeah,
You give them the tools and the resources, and you sort of implore and empower them to create that. Because with 30 people,
yeah,
you can't single-handedly do
no,
that, right? You need a tribe who kind of represents that in numbers. And then when new employees come in, and I had this as well, is it was important for me as a business owner that when new employees came in, it wasn't just me or the manager talking about X, Y, and Z. It was being made evident around them
the coworkers.
immediately. Like
Yeah,
these
immediately.
concepts that we're talking about, they're being put into practice right here. Hey, we say hello first thing when customers come in. 3 seconds later, they hear a hello to an incoming customer. Right,
Yeah,
that lands with some resonance and some impact. Versus,
yeah,
okay, you say that, right, but
yeah. What I've done over time, because this is my no, this is my 13th, going on to my 14th year of being involved with the cafe, which then kind of spurred on everything else that's happened around it. Um, uh, Having to train people to say, because you're right, you do need to have them acknowledge people when they walk in the door so they feel welcome. I've taken it a step further, that's a given, but the way that it's a relaxed atmosphere where almost like if you or I walked into each other's office, even if we didn't know each other, most likely we would give this stranger a warm acknowledgement of them being there, but in a very relaxed manner. And so it really kind of disarms people about how they're used to being treated in the hospitality business, where suddenly they're around relaxed, capable, interesting, smart people. They're going to take really good care of them. And so that kind of like washes over them, where they're like, oh, this is different. And
Mhm.
that's that for me. That's not some kind of pipe dream. That's what I'm paying for. My target person to hire is never graduated college. Usually they're kind of in the middle transition, like they started and that didn't work out for them, and they happen to be in this area, and we think they're a good fit. But they're most of them are kind of a ticking time bomb as long as how long I have them. I only
Mhm.
get them for a year or two, and then they move on with their lives. And I'm the first one to wish them the best. And so what it's done is create a culture of people that are more like us, you or I. And a lot of times, longer customers, regulars would be like, "Where do you find these people? Like they're just
Mhm.
magnificent." They're like, "We were talking about Russian philosophy yesterday." I was like, "Oh yeah, I think they studied that in school." And so it's just kind of
Mhm.
like this is like a safe haven until they move on. But I never try to trick anyone to stay. I never try to coerce them. I'm grateful for the time that they gave me, and then they move on. But over time, it's attracted more people like that.
Mhm.
It's not a 100% target. I always get these kinds of people, but over time, with the core staff that has decided to stay, one of our people has been here for 12 years, another one 10, and then 7 5. And so like you said, like from day one, like it's a given that how this place is going to be run. But if we would have to remind someone that they need to say hello to someone, then it's probably already looking like they're not the right fit.
It's possible. I mean, I agree with you, but
That's,
I,
that's
I think the
yeah,
definition of what's given in the recent
yeah.
years has
Oh,
changed. So I'm with you on the philosophy of you don't have to do these things or agree with them fundamentally or philosophically, but for the time that you're here,
yeah.
this is sort of, these are the guidelines, these are the parameters. The relationship, this is a working relationship, we try to have fun. But these are our basic ground rules, and there's some range, right? You want to give, people are different, they have personalities, sometimes what they bring I can't predict. And I'm like, man, this person's bringing something really amazing, right? They like to sing out loud. Is it in the company policy that we're allowed or not allowed to sing out loud? No, but it's kind of cool. So
Right.
and the
It's
next thing you know, they
fascinating.
move on, and somebody walks in. Hey, where's that person that was
Right.
always
Where's
on
the
kind of
singer?
funny
Yeah.
tune? Well, they're not here, unfortunately. Like, well, can you
Yeah.
get someone? No, we can't get someone to, like, as a matter of policy.
We're not a CSA talent agent.
But people do that kind of stuff, right? And you get those little gifts.
After a while, it builds the charm.
Yeah.
Over the years. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
completely agree. Yeah, no, this place is very unique in that way, where people do get to express themselves, and usually we're enjoying the show as much as the customers.
Yeah. And that's the key, right? And that's the key to, I think, that term, I don't like it, but it's out there, work-life balance. Like, you integrate it, right? If your work and your life as a business owner sort of are the same, and you're enjoying both, and you don't always know which one you're in, right? Sometimes you're at work, and that's part of your life, and sometimes you're doing life, and work is in it. I think as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, you can graduate out of that to where there are hard, rigid lines. But I'm against people entering and saying, I want to be a business owner, but work-life balance is important to me. Hey, this concept is way down the line.
It sounds like you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. I would recommend, I stopped giving that type of advice to people, because when I was too honest with them, I could tell that they were offended and they wish they hadn't asked me. So I don't really give unsolicited advice unless someone really like that I trust enough to want to be honest with them, and they schedule, not like this exactly, but that they schedule time with me. Then I'll talk with them and then give them my honest opinion. Or sometimes I don't have one. I say, I don't know. I don't know enough about this. Incredibly valuable,
And
I really cherish people that I trust saying I don't know. But to that point, the whole work-life balance thing, that feels like a TikTok ad. It doesn't feel like reality.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So some of my staff years prior, especially around COVID, when things got a little bumpy, I noticed a trend, because I was around more because I needed to be, where younger people in their 30s, were referring to the golden days of when their parents were gone and they would get all of their stuff.
Wow.
And that was really like, it blew my mind that basically, not that they were wishing, ill against their parents, but that was their long-term game plan. And not that they're lazy, but things seem so bleak to them now that that's all they have left to look forward to.
And that's a revelation to you. That can be a given to you, right? We're back to that. Like, what is a given when somebody walks in the door? You don't know that somebody holds that sort of concept in their head. So, okay.
It was more than one, too. That was a theme where they talked about basically their parents' stuff becoming theirs.
How old? What's the age range that sort of that inhabits this type of headspace in your experience?
Late 20s, early 30s. So basically, they went out into the world. Things didn't work out so well. These are the ones that usually were low performance and didn't stick around over time in hindsight. But I did notice that was a topic where basically there's something to be said for, in trying times, having a group together with your family. And there can be a lot of beauty in that, because when we were younger, you were just trying to get out the door and go away from your family as quickly as possible, but there was plenty of $600 a month apartments to choose from. You just pick, they're everywhere. And you always had enough for gas and to go get a burger and go out on the weekend. It was just, I didn't even know how lucky we had it.
Yeah, so this whole idea of moving out at the age of 18 and 19 and with your buddies or friends and having some kind of car, having some kind of job, and having some kind of pocket money, and still having your own place, that doesn't exist anymore, at least not in where we live. So,
and that's why they're talking the way that they were talking.
Yeah,
is that's the only thing they have to look forward to. I wouldn't say that, of course, actually I had one Harvard graduate, and she was the cum laude or whatever,
every imaginable accolade.
And when she said it was just for the summer, and it was in the middle of COVID, and I read her resume and I was like, what the? And so I called her and I was just like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you applying for this job? And she was a bit like put off. She's like, because I need a job for the summer. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's a good
And
answer.
she ended up moving to France, and she works for the UN now. She's
Yeah.
like a translator. But to that point, it's like I know that most of the people that are coming and going aren't that. But sometimes I've even had that. So maybe they're shooting a little too low. Maybe they didn't get the social skills or the work ethic in place. So I don't have like the best people around me to say that like things aren't looking great. But the people that I'm immediately around are definitely, I would say overachievers, but achievers, and the math isn't adding up. They
Mhm.
can't afford to do anything else. So yeah,
Which is unfortunate, and despite the differences in opinions and views and philosophies, I don't wish that upon anybody. I think being able to have that first chapter of independence, whatever, like, fine, it's a beat up car and it's an apartment that's nothing to be proud of, but you're doing it, right? You're kind of paying the phone bill or whatever, the electricity bill or the rent bill,
yeah,
the $17 gas or electrical bill on your own, right? And if you're late, it gets shut off, and then you have to deal with the
I heard
company.
about that. Yeah,
Those are all experiences that then someone carries forward to the workforce, right?
yeah,
Sometimes you get the employees that haven't had any of those experiences, which is where I go back to saying hello when you
yeah.
first come in the door. They just don't have, sometimes it might be like just the
Social
ground
skills.
level stuff. Like, okay,
Yeah,
if you spill something, you need to
you got
wipe it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not a given.
No. Actually, no, it's true. Yeah, you're surprised. You're like, wow, really? I
Yeah.
gotta, I gotta break this down to you right now.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, is this my job? It's common
yeah, yeah.
sense,
There's
which is
a
part
lot
of
of that
every job.
questioning, like, what is my job? A lot of it feels very Shakespearean, kind of like to be or not to be, when really it's just like just clean it up.
Yeah, just do it. It takes
In
1
their
second.
minds, it's much more layered and
Yeah,
complicated and nuanced. You're like, nope, not really.
yeah, yeah.
Just do the job. Yeah. I don't know what your parents were teaching you when you were younger, or what classes you took, but this is not, yeah. I think most young people, rightfully so, have a really good sense of their ego. It's well checked and it's in place. It's a survival tool to get yourself to the next lily pad, and in that way it's valuable, but it can be very deceiving as well.
And sometimes it goes under, self-esteem or
Yeah,
sort of self-care and all of those things. But like, even if someone else spilled the cream, grabbing a rag and cleaning it up isn't going to cut into your time or your resource or make you love yourself less or respect yourself less, right? Those are
yeah.
not big things, but sometimes you find that they're kind of in that calculus and like, well, I don't want to do that, right? That's not part of my job.
My hunch is maybe it's the helicopter parents that actually swooped in too fast to do everything for them.
Yeah.
I was a latchkey kid. I had to walk. This sounds like one of those stories, but I had to walk to school or ride my bike a mile and a half every day into town. Rain, sleet, or snow is the only way to get there, and I would come home to a dark house by myself. And I stopped having a babysitter on the weekends if my mom was out of town at maybe like 8. And so I was on my own, and I was cooking my own food, and I had to do my own laundry, and I had to do dishes every night. And that wasn't even up for grabs. That was normal. So a lot of it was independence, left alone with responsibilities. There wasn't any real like or else abuse, but it was just in that time you didn't really question if you did or didn't have to do it. You just
Yeah, it wasn't a quick, and the check and
no,
balance is like if you didn't do it, it just didn't get done. You didn't have
didn't get done. Yeah,
clean clothes, or you didn't have food, or
you were the
and,
smelly
and that,
kid, or you were
that
hungry.
kind
Or, yeah,
of
yeah,
message
totally.
that pretty early and pretty effectively, right? It's
Yeah,
like, well,
having siblings too, you end up you got to fight for resources, so you're paying attention.
right.
Yeah,
All right. So we're kind of in. You're a teenager. Your school's not for you. You've decided this. It's the early '90s, and then something else, comes. You spot the next thing. You become excited about the club scene and the music, and you start learning to DJ.
yeah,
Did I have that about right? Kind of chronologically, early '90s.
Oh, that's about right. Yeah, this kind of the heyday in the Bay Area. It was kind of like the modern day electronic Woodstock in
Hmm.
the early '90s in San Francisco. Really in California, but specifically in San Francisco, where young kids 17 to and up were going out with fake IDs, going to nightclubs, going to raves, staying up all night, and just sort of had a key to the city after hours in San Francisco, and that place was so progressive then that depending on your living situation, and I lived on my own. I moved out on my 18th birthday, which had its ups and downs. Back to the point about responsibilities, but I didn't have any background in music whatsoever, so it was as much of a surprise to me that I cared about this, that this was interesting to me, that I actually thought that I had any ability to do any of it. But similar to, sometimes this stuff just kind of lands on your doorstep. There was plenty of opportunities for me to not care about it as much and go kind of back to college or stay in college. Um, but something would always happen that would kind of be an exciting opportunity that led me to keep showing up to that. And, really that's the way that people that are struggling with alcohol addiction or my friends in the past that were figuring out their lives. And I was like, the thing that really seems to matter for people, and this is a little different, I'm talking about my career choices, is
Hmm.
w- what are you excited about when you wake up in the morning? That's what's going to lead you, is what do you care about that day? And until it's something better than that, you're going to just keep choosing that other
You're
thing.
gonna keep doing that thing.
You're going to
Yeah.
keep doing the other thing, right or wrong, good or bad, or detriment to you, whatever. But you really got to find something that you're passionate about. So for me, originally it was just girls. I just wanted to meet girls, and then the nightclubs were happening, and it was exciting, and I lived on my own, and so I was able to come and go as I please, which was a little too much independence, a little too early in hindsight. Now,
Yeah.
I would never allow my son, unless he just on his 18th birthday moved out like me. I would not recommend what I did to anyone. I don't think it's that safe, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, different time. I mean, what places were you hidden? Like, where were you living in San Fran, or what places were
Right.
you hidden? What's the club scene like?
I was going to junior college in Santa Rosa, California. My family moved from Berkeley up to the Napa Valley, and I ended up going to high school at a Catholic school until they politely asked me to leave, like you mentioned. And I went off to boarding school, and I realized, because of where my birthday fell, because me being me, that I didn't have to finish my senior year, that I could
Hmm.
leave and get my GED and just go to college immediately.
Hmm.
And so I sweet talked everyone around me, saying I'd rather do this. And for the first 6 months, my dad helped me with rent, and everyone helped me move in, and they're really excited about it. And then I just completely just became a dud as far as showing up to classes, and I was just going. So I was commuting to the Bay Area 2 or 3 nights a week to go
Mm.
out to nightclubs. So I was a bad kid.
Were you driving? I thought you had a license, or you were
Well,
busing.
whoever, friends,
Yeah.
whatever. I had a fake ID to get into the nightclubs, but yeah, I didn't really own a car back then, but I just knew a lot of people, and there was a whole
Hmm.
scene around it. But my point is that I quickly realized that I didn't want to live in Santa Rosa, California. I wanted to live in the Bay Area, so I maybe with like $500, I found an opportunity to live in a really questionable neighborhood in kind of the ghettos of Oakland, California.
Hmm.
Basically crack neighborhood. Like the closer you got to my house, the more dangerous it felt. It
Right.
should be the other way around, but I was like walking into the dawn.
You would think, yeah. But you're
Like
on your own. You got your own
well,
place.
yeah, the crack dealers, after a while, they all knew me. They would leave me alone. I knew we acknowledged each other, and they kind of had an understanding that they wouldn't rob me, basically.
Right.
And I just pieced it together. And in hindsight, it sounds way too cavalier and not even me now to do
Right.
that. But at the time, it made perfect sense, and that's all I wanted to do. Back to that point about choosing, being passionate about it for whatever reason, I was just gung ho on doing this, and so
And
I
this
got a job
being
at a record
music
store.
and DJing and spinning.
For first, yeah, well, that's a funny term. First, I got a job at a record store, and also making coffee at a coffee shop in Berkeley. And supposedly I was going back to college, trying to keep faith with my family, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was just immersed in music, and I quickly learned one experience going on Telegraph Avenue, which is kind of the main strip, kind of the hate street of Berkeley, that I bought a record for 50 cents. And when I took it to the record shop I worked at, my manager bought it off me for $10.
Uh-huh.
And that blew my mind that I just made $9.50 off this when I just walked from there to there. And it just kind of opened up my
You had
eyes.
just put together a transaction that you didn't know you had
I
done.
didn't know that that wasn't even an option for me to profit off of, pounding the pavement and picking these records. And so I quickly realized, like, hey, this is a good gig for me. This is better than having a day job. And I got really good at it. And I started to figure out where there was a lot of music. And this was the very beginning of eBay.
Mm-hmm.
eBay just started maybe 96, 97. And so at that point, I was selling a lot of records to people. People were coming from Europe and buying records off me, and I was known as this guy that had records. But more importantly, so I really didn't have to have a day job anymore.
Records at that time, is it CDs you're selling? Is it
No
just
records, vinyl records,
actual vinyl you're selling?
actual vinyl records. Yeah, yeah. San Francisco had a really big kind of a disco and soul scene in the '70s. And then it dropped off, like most of it did. And most people, when I was collecting this stuff, it was a novelty. The idea that I was playing with records. They were like, "Wow, I didn't even know that people were still using those." So
Yeah.
CDs were very prevalent at that point, which was to my benefit because I went and I scooped them all up, and,
Mm-hmm.
and, and I
Like what
bought
sort of,
them.
like which records, like name a couple artists that you would, I mean, what's in your collection? I've seen your collection. It's wild, but like,
Yeah, there's too many to name. It could be as a certain Jackson 5 record to Miles Davis record to some kind of like white disco band from Ireland. Everything and anything. It's this. We don't have enough time to talk about
yeah,
why things are rare, why they are.
I
But
just need,
what I learned, I had a natural kind of Jedi ability to find them, or more, they found me. And so my point in all this is it why had the ability to keep going when I had no background, no theory, no support, was these little kind of like moments that afforded me to keep doing what I wanted to do.
mm-hmm.
And that's not usually the case. Usually, like, okay, you gave it a shot. Now you got to hit the books. You got to find a profession. You got to grow up. And I didn't. I kept not having to grow up. I kept learning how to do this more and more, to the point where I taught myself how to produce music. The kind of music I was DJing with was a certain style of music where it was kind of like dub reggae meets disco soul. And years later, when I had my record label, I really kind of pinpointed that and became kind of a genre making style where we were like this is years later, but we were kind of the darlings of New York for about 5 or 6 years.
This is wrong music.
Song music, yeah. My record label out of Manhattan, we were the talk of the town. We were throwing parties and doing these big parties with the MoMA and like tens of thousands of people. And yeah, we were hip. We were happening. But all of this earlier on kind of led up to that, where we were the first ones, we tastemakers of this
Mm-hmm.
sound. But, I didn't realize I was pioneering anything. It's just what I was doing. It's only
You're
after
just kind of
that
hanging around, kicking and doing what you wanted to do, being
yeah,
happy
let's just
that
kind
you
of
didn't
figure it out. And I liked how it sounded like this. And the other thing I ran into a lot is engineers, people that were smarter than me, same with the coffee business, telling me that I was doing it wrong a lot.
Mhm.
And that's why I came up with that name.
Oh, that's where it's from. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
Wrong
it was
music.
kind of a flippant, ironic response to it. Like,
And
oh, you think it's all wrong, and that ended up being kind of a
and you spell it RONG.
RONG.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you ever pinpoint? Did you ever give this your style? You said you kind of dialed it in a little bit. Was there a name for it? Did you come up with something, or was it just?
by the end, when it was really happening in New York, you would call it kind of a punk disco. So an easy way
Let's go.
for older listeners, if you like the Talking Heads, you probably would like some of this stuff. Would be an
Yeah.
easy way to say it. Stuff like that. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you catch the David Byrne movie, the recent one, by the way?
I saw that. No, I don't know anything about it. What is it?
Yeah. I
I should
forget
watch
the
it.
name of it now, but it's a pretty memorable name, but I forget, it's one of their songs. But yeah, anyway. So I get the sense. So Talking Heads, kind of like Ramones meets Donna Summers or something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Blondie. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so for more modern, younger listeners or people that go to festivals, I did a record label with the band LCD Sound System.
Yeah, I know LCD
Yeah,
Sound
okay.
System. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I did a
Yeah.
record label with those guys for a number of years too.
Well, if we have enough time, and we'll spin a little bit of your music at the end of this, so those listening, hang out. You'll get a taste of what Ben's doing today.
The
But
one that I pulled up is me trying to sound like Pink Floyd. So
yeah,
that's
you
how
sent it to me like, this is
how we
me trying
go
to sound like
easier
Pink
for all the
Floyd,
listeners.
but it still sounded like you. I mean, I've heard your stuff, and it's. I think when we talked about music, and maybe this extends to your business philosophy. I remember I told you you remind me of Rick Rubin, kind
a
of
little
in
bit.
your
I've heard
in
that.
your approach to where, and he's famous for saying, look, I don't know anything
I don't know
about
anything about
this
this stuff. Yeah,
equipment or
yeah.
what the
Same here.
style is or what you play or don't play.
Yeah.
I just want you to do this
What I
and see
like.
if it sounds, yeah, I'll tell you what I like, and I'll give
Yeah,
you
yeah,
some suggestions.
yeah.
But he's known for, pushing creativity by getting rid of the limits and the kind of
Yeah.
the typical stamps of
Yeah.
things, and getting people to do their best work by getting
Yeah.
out of the box, really.
Oddly enough, and back to one of your curiosities, there ended up being a parallel with that and what I'm doing now. It's much more kind of like boots on the ground as opposed to people buying units or me performing, but something kind of that ethos transferred over to the culture of people needing a safe place to have a cup of coffee, uh,
Hmm.
feel like that they're it sounds kind of hippy dippy, but that they're seen, that they're respected, they're appreciated, that we're not trying to turn a table on them. It's that same kind of ethos that we're talking about, Rick Rubin, where it's just sort of like, come as you are,
Yeah.
whatever it is. As long as you're not causing problems in here, you're all welcome in here. And naturally, some people said, gosh, shouldn't let people just sit in here and drink a cup of water. And I go, because of how busy it gets in here, they naturally will leave because they'll feel it that it's time for them to go.
Hmm.
Even the biggest pests will go, you know what, I'm really in the way. If it's that busy and that kind of energetic and chaotic. And so it's really created kind of this same with my employees, where it's just like you get to be more of yourself than you ever would imagined. Most places you walk into, whether you realize it or not, you're kind of like, there's a certain button down approach to how you're supposed to get through the line or order your meal and then get out of there afterwards. It's not like that at all at our place.
Well, it is kind of a Rubenesque
Yeah,
parallel and interaction in a way. You know how he would say, let's just play this tune and see, let
what
the
happens?
let
Yeah,
the art kind of take us where it's going to go. In a
yeah,
way, every customer interaction and the way you treat your customers is okay. It's a little bit of a creation, right? You've served them something. Whether they sit there for 15 minutes or 45 minutes at that point is up to them. That's the art form of it. In a way, that's every customer interaction is like a poem or a song or a piece of art, right?
it's yeah, that's exactly. It's an acceptance of what is.
That's what it is,
Or
right?
whatever it is, it's an
Yeah.
acceptance of that. And once your self-esteem and you have enough success, which luckily I've had enough now, at least in this field of running this cafe, I can honestly say that it is a successful business, and that's not up for grabs. But it
Right.
gives you kind of you become more relaxed about these things that maybe would have bothered you, or people think that should bother you, that don't bother you at all anymore. uh, and that's similar with me. I played you some of the music I'm working on now, and it's getting good enough now. Like you heard of like a version of it from about a year ago. Like the stuff that I'm
Mhm.
finishing is way further along than the version you heard. But I'm starting to play it for friends, sending it to them, and they're like, "So what are you doing with this? What's your plan?" And they're kind of wanting me to chomp at the bit to go back to my old ways, and I just keep saying,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Uh,
Y-
we'll see. I don't need it to be anything. And the biggest one is I don't want to make any money off of it. That's the biggest one for me, and that kind of blows people away. They're like, you can totally make money off this. You used to do it, and I was like, yeah, that didn't work out so well for me, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's really the coffee business has afforded me the ability to say no, thank you to the commerce part of the music now, and I think it makes it better.
Well, you're at a point in your career and in life where you've earned the right to define your own success
Yeah.
and your own boundaries, and say, okay, I don't have to do this for money because I don't want to, right?
Art for the sake of art. That's all it is, just for the sake of doing it. And that's usually when in my experience, when magnificent things tend to happen, is when you really aren't trying to put all these labels and expectations on it, and you kind of love it and you let it go. And that's where it seems like the magic shows up. Well, that's about as close to religion as I think I can get. Whatever that process is of really, really passionately just grinding away and making something perfect, and then letting it go.
Well, I think this actually brings us to the point in the conversation of how you transition into the coffee business, because so there's this end of the career, or what ended up being the end of the commercial part of your career of music, where you traveled the world, and you can talk about places you visited and sort of where you've played music, but then that becomes clear to you that that's not the direction you want to take. You want something new, and you come to Port Townsend with a completely open mind and a clean slate, right? You had no idea this coffee shop existed. You came to reconnect with your mom, and that sounded like that was the end of the agenda, if there was one.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I'll give the listeners a little bit of backstory. With the success of the record label and the production career and the DJing and all of the associations we had, brought some pretty big opportunities as far as doing music for film and TV commercials, etc., and different opportunities. But quickly after, is what I quickly learned was that people were just fighting over money. And it got so bad that one of my lawyers was actually Lady Gaga's lawyer. I just say that for like the stakes.
You lawyered up. It sounds like
lawyered up pretty fast. Yeah. Things got super heavy. And fast forward like 2 or 3 years later of just arguing over piles of money, I was exhausted, and I just didn't care anymore. And a friend of mine, when I was out to dinner with her, she's like, I don't think I've heard any new music from you in years now. So like, what's up with you? And I was like, I don't even do that anymore. I just yell at people and get yelled at, basically.
So you're on the phone all day, every day, trying to sort this thing out.
Yeah, trying to a lot of it was stuff is out of my control, where a distributor or a partner for whatever X is not giving all of the reports, and it's been 9 months, and this is triggering this band that's unhappy, wanting this and saying, we're not going to let you, even though you're allowed to license this song, because we haven't gotten those reports. And we can't make them give them to us. We just have to keep, kind of pestering them to do it, which is one lawyer. And then after a while, band A gets mad at you and they get their own lawyer. And then so suddenly you're talking to multiple lawyers about stuff. And then suddenly it's like, big corporations getting involved. Like I almost held up the release of that movie 127 hours.
Because you were writing a soundtrack, you were contributing a song?
Yeah. I was a producer on it, but I was also the record label that was licensing it to
So
them.
this is the one with James Franco where he gets hung up
the
in
whole beginning scene where he's
where
getting all stuff together. Yeah. And he's like driving through the night to go to the desert. That whole first 5 minutes is a song that I was involved with this band called Free Blood. And
so you hold up the release.
Well, so because of all the stuff I just described, this was one example of it. I get a call from a boardroom of lawyers at 20th Century Fox, and they're like, so "What are we doing here, Ben?" And they're like, "You have so and so and so," and they named all the people there in the room just to intimidate me. And I was like, "Hello, everyone." Luckily, I'd been working at an office because I took a day job for a little while, and so I wasn't as intimidated as easily as maybe they wanted me to be, because I had done a lot of meetings.
They just wanted you to fold.
They wanted me to fold, and rightfully so. And the issues were out of my control. And so really what stuck with me was what they said was, have you ever heard of a movie not coming out the day it's scheduled to be released? And I was like,
No,
no.
I've never heard of that.
And what they said was us either. And then it was radio silence. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh shit. I'm about to hold up this fucking Danny Boyle movie, like because of this license issue.
Could have been cool. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
that's
you know, I
that's a
feel
little
culpable,
gap.
but like I was about to like hold up the
You put that
show.
on your
Uh,
resume. Held up a
yeah,
Danny
yeah, I
Boyle
almost
movie.
ruined the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I said immediately after it was like, look, I'll give the artist all of the money. Does that solve the problem? And they all
Hmm.
said, yep. And so, but you know, that was just one example. There was like 20 other things that happened. But what I learned was that a lot of these artists and people in the industry aren't used to actually having real success. And when it
Hmm.
shows up, they have misgivings about the deal that they made. And I tried to be as above board as I could and take care of everyone, but I didn't have experience of defending myself so much. I didn't know that that was a prerequisite of the job. And you know what? Now in hindsight, what a valuable thing I learned about how the work world, especially the entertainment industry, actually works. You know, I learned
Yeah,
all about it. I
there's
was,
all
yeah.
kinds of carryover in that dynamic because that happens every day in the world of business.
Talk about shrewd and cunning people. The entertainment, they're cutthroat, man. They mean business, and it's all on a schedule. Everything's very tight. You know, it's just like, you know, the time is money more so than any other industry than that one.
Mhm.
So from that, to go back to your original question about how I landed here, I sold my half of the record label pretty much overnight, fire sale, and the full amount that I got for it, I went and I paid off as much of the royalties that I owed to all of the artists, and then
Mhm.
that was it. And I walked away with nothing at all, except the headache was gone. And so
So effectively, you're clean out of the music business at
I'm
that
out of
point.
it. I'm out of it completely. Yeah, I just walked away out of frustration. You know, if I when I was younger, when I was going out to clubs and starting college, if I told myself that that's what was going to happen, I would have said, "Forget, that's not going to happen." So excited that I would have that interesting of a life.
Hmm.
So I take it with a grain of salt. I have some gratitude. But hey, man, at least you were in the show. You know, you
Yeah,
got to do it for a little while, and
I
you
mean,
know,
you're in it at that point. You're traveling the world. You mentioned
yeah,
you played in Russia. You played in
we
Spain.
played a lot in a lot. I had a residency at a club called Fabric in London for a few years, and I would play there all the time.
Hmm.
We would go to Tokyo on tours a lot because our record label was really popular in Tokyo.
And
And
this is like 95, 90.
uh, but yeah, the record label really started in 2003. I was DJing. I had my own career prior to that, really starting in like 97,
Yeah.
98. Prior to that, I was just a local, you know, playing at clubs and bars in the Bay Area. Uh,
Hmm.
Again, me learning how to make music myself and some opportunities, just pure chance, gave me. I met people in England, and I was brave enough to just hop on a plane and go over there and
Hmm.
hang out with them. And I created a whole kind of network of friends. And you know, as strong, some of those friends over there are closer friends than I have here back in America now, to be honest. So from that, the record label just kind of grew naturally out of that. Um, so to answer your question, yeah, it was just me, and then it was a big group of people, and then it was just this big performance, and then it all got kind of like blown out of control a little bit. The best way to
So
describe it.
you take the proceeds from the sale, you pay off the debt, you pay off the headache, you're clean slate,
Yeah,
and you
and I moved to Africa.
you go to Nairobi.
I go to Nairobi. Yeah,
You do a Dave Chappelle.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. Dave Chappelle. Yeah, I think even when I was doing it, I knew that's what I was doing. I don't know if he went to Kenya or not, but I was doing my own version of Dave Chappelle.
But I
Uh,
mean, he walked away from the
he
entertainment
walked. He
business,
just walked away
or
from it all. Yeah,
yeah.
it was. This is a funny story. I before I decided to do that, I was living on a sailboat in Marina Del Rey, which is a really
Hmm.
kind of posh neighborhood next to Santa Monica, and I was, you know, applying for jobs. This was after I'd sold the record label, but hadn't figured out what's next. And I got an interview for this YouTube station that Madonna was starting in Hollywood. And
Madonna?
Madonna, yeah. I mean, it might still be around. I've never really researched
And
it.
you
But
okay.
at that point, YouTube was the new thing, and she wanted to basically start her own Madonna TV
All
type
right.
thing. Which makes perfect
Sounds
sense.
believable.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So I walked into this office, and oddly enough, it was all women.
Uh-huh.
It was just like this group of women behind desks, all like in their mid 20s to early 30s, all very fashionable and beautiful.
So that
And I
sounds
got
like in your wheelhouse, Ben, at that
well,
time.
I know it was like you would think it was a daydream. I was just like you hit man, you were the luckiest
You
guy.
hit the jackpot again.
I totally did. So I
You're
go to
the
the
guy who keeps
boardroom.
buying lottery tickets and
I
hitting
know,
jackpots and doesn't know
I
what it's
know.
not like to hit
People,
a
I used to
jackpot.
buy people lottery tickets. Yeah. But so I go into the boardroom and I could tell the vibe because of my resume and a quick phone call I had prior to the interview that I already had the job. I didn't
Okay.
even know what the job was really. I didn't understand it. And so the CEO, kind of the founder, and then kind of her manager, who was definitely older in her 40s and kind of had a business acumen. And my
Mhm.
hunch was that the girl that I met, the younger woman who was in charge, was probably family friends with Madonna. That's kind of the vibe that I got. Mhm.
She was what, just had the comfort level and ease with the whole thing.
She must have had a great idea, and it was at dinner with Madonna. Madonna's like, "Let's bankroll it, let's do it," and gave her the
Mhm.
money, and they started this company above the Waffle House on Sunset in Hollywood. And so I was sitting in this boardroom, and I could tell, like, oh, this job is mine if I want it, once I figure out exactly what it is. And so everything was going great. And yeah, even before I messed it up, she asked, "How much do you want to get paid?" And I was like, "I don't know yet. We'd have to talk more about it before I can answer that
Mhm.
question." And she goes, "So what kind of music do you like to listen to?" And I was at such kind of a weird place with everything I just described, where I was like, "I don't really listen to music." And the eyes, the eyes got really big. They were like, "What
That's
the
probably the one thing you could have
what?"
said to bomb
What?
yourself
Yeah,
out of that
yeah.
job
No,
that
I
you already
shot
had.
my own foot off right there in front of me. I was just, yeah, I was like, I listen to podcasts, and so she was trying to kind of salvage the conversation. She's like, "But you could, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, that's what I
Yeah,
do."
I know how to listen to music,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a
I just
strong
don't.
listener of music. Yes, I know a lot about music. I even
Yeah.
brought her this big bag of CDs of stuff that I was helping license, and two of them were ones that she was looking for. So she
Mhm.
knew that I knew what I was talking about, but I just was too honest in that moment. So obviously I did not get that job, and I was stuck in traffic trying to get home because I usually didn't even venture into that part of LA at that point because it just sucked getting back to the west side to the beach. And I was stuck in traffic, and a friend of mine on Facebook, when everyone was still Facebook messaging one another, asked me how it was going, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And she lived in Nairobi, and she said, "You should come visit me." And I said, "Okay."
That sounds right.
Yeah, yeah, because I was just like, "Dude, you're not even trying anymore. You're fucking
Yeah.
it up, and you just walked away from the best job in the world. Every guy wants this job, and you just blew it up by design.
Yeah, you're in the wrong place, wrong
You're in the
time.
wrong place. Yeah,
Just
you don't want to be a mover and shaker in Hollywood. Obviously, that's not interesting to you.
right.
So I went back to my boat and found the
You
cheapest
said where? Marina Del Rey?
Marina Del Rey. Yeah, that's kind of like there's Venice Beach,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then after Venice, it kind of ventures into what,
So
what
there's
becomes kind
Venice,
of
kinda La Brea goes in there, there's
yeah,
airport, and then
yeah, and then
yeah.
Marina Del Rey. It's very like hip kind of. Everything's nice, like across the
A
street from the.
a lot of people living on boats reassessing their next step,
Yes,
whether
yeah, I
it's
found that
after
out
divorce
actually. Yeah,
or
yeah,
whether
yeah.
they're billionaires or whether
I
they
was
have a
not
dream,
alone.
like,
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting people around me on boats. Yeah. But that was short term. The guy actually the month before I decided to bail, he offered to sell me the boat so I could stay there for the rest of my life, I guess, and live happily ever after in my boat slip.
but
Um,
but
uh,
why do that when you can go to Nairobi?
well, yeah, and just really throw caution to the wind. And at this point, I think I maybe only had like $3,000 or $4,000 to my name. It
Mhm.
wasn't a great decision. It's like, what are you going to do there? What's your plan?
And
But I just
you're like what, 25 to your mid-20s at this point?
no,
Or no,
no,
you're
no.
like 30 something.
Yeah, I'm in my 30s. Yeah. I'd have to. This was 2011, whenever that
Yeah,
was. I'm 51 now,
yeah.
so you do the math. I wasn't 40 yet. I was in my 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I go there, and you know, there was kind of an attraction thing with the girl, which kind of motivated me, but that wasn't really why I was going. I don't know. In hindsight, I don't know why I went, but I went, and she was from San Jose, or the Bay Area, and when she answered the door, she had a fake English accent suddenly,
Oh,
and I was
I
like,
almost want to say that's almost like it's, that's just not a good sign.
no, I was like, oh, I
Fake
fucked up.
English accent is not a
Yeah, I
good sign.
was like, yo, like you didn't have, and I was like, I should have Zoomed with you before I did all of this.
Option back then.
But I was so caught up in the spirit of just saying yes that
Yeah,
you
you
know,
were in yes mode. There was
I
no.
was in yes mode. And so I went there, and I stayed for, I think like 6 months, a little bit more than that. And I ended up going to Mombasa because we weren't getting along because she had her own stuff going on, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and it ended up where I ended up staying on this compound with this couple. She was the president or the head of the Save the Kids Foundation
Uh-huh.
in Africa, which is a pretty big deal over there, saving all the
Yeah.
kids. Uh, and and
She was the
and
president of that
she was the
organization.
head of. She was like the
The
face
girl
of
that you
Save.
went to visit.
No, no, she that we went together to go visit this couple on
Okay.
in Mombasa, on the island of
Okay,
Mombasa,
got it.
and they happened to be she was the woman
Mhm.
there, and her husband was basically just kind of a house husband. He didn't have to work, and they had a beautiful home, and so he was bored, and he's like, you should just we got along, so you should just stay here with me for a while. I was like, oh, all right. So I did not go back with my friend. And I stayed in Mombasa for like a month and a half, a little bit more, and that was a whole nother trip. I discovered a dead body on the beach one day when I was there.
What's the protocol in Mombasa when you come across something like that? What do you
I was really nervous about sticking around
do?
because I
Okay.
was like, I don't want to get caught up in any of this stuff, and I'm
And
definitely
there's
not
some
from.
stuff going on. I mean, there's.
At first, I thought it was a seal or a small whale because I'm walking. I do my morning walk on the beach, and I was like, and then I started to see colors like a polo shirt. I was like, oh, that's not
Ah,
an
man.
animal.
Yeah.
And so up on the bluff above the beach, there's all these fancy resorts, kind of 5-star resorts, and I started to flag down one of the security guys, and I was like, hey, down here. Uh, and outside of this is kind of an interesting story. The reason why I tell you, just so you understand what it's like there, I went home and I told the guy, and he's like, yeah, stuff happens. And the next day, I wake up to go take my walk again, and lo and behold, the body is still effing there.
And 24 hours later, nobody
Yeah,
did
man, the
anything.
body's still there. And I was just like, what the? And so I just, it was like bad juju. I just turned around and walked back. And my friend again, he's like, yeah, dead man can't bribe. The next day, the body
No
was gone.
reason to move him. And
No, so the human value of life is way low
mm,
there, and that was that was actually probably one of the biggest things I took away. Plus, there was like this low level, I wouldn't call it racism, but kind of it felt like slavery as far as a lot of the people that I was hanging out with had money. And they were excited to hang out with a cool guy like me, and they all lived behind kind of large compound walls,
mhm.
and they had staff, and the staff was basically glorified slaves, in my opinion, and that was really
So this
hard
is
for
a
me.
very elite protected circle
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it can't be bothered to attend to a dead body on the beach or anything else that doesn't really concern them.
It doesn't concern them. It's just there's different rules there. But more importantly, one of the reasons why, because some of the people are like, you should stay. We'll help you find like a business. You can be a titan of industry. I know people kind of thing.
Mhm,
Was the way that they were treating their staff. I really couldn't stomach it because it felt like it was human rights issues.
mhm.
But there, it's normal, and they justify it. Like if you don't treat them like that, they'll get out of line. And I'm
And so
just like,
you
nope,
realize that you want nothing to do with
nope, I
these
want
people.
nothing to do with this. I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And so I left. And then at this point, when I came back, gosh, I had enough money from something music thing that happened to buy a car when I got back, and I pretty much just bought a car and drove up to Port Townsend from Los Angeles, where my return ticket was, and I had $100 and some credit card debt and some student loan debt. And that's to answer long way around. This is when I didn't make any plans anymore.
Like, the retail world, right? You got 80% of your, or 70 or some majority coming from this much, and then something happens. And I've been on the wrong end of that many times. That's all, to me, part of the deal in the cycle.
Yeah, the for us it's the bridge closing, that bridge that we have, the drawbridge. As soon as that goes down, then we're cut off.
Drawbridge, the one that's between like Port Gamble and kind of across that one.
Whenever I need to remember the name of it, I always forget it. But whatever that's called, pretty often. Like I think the other day,
and that's just wind or water coming over or whatever.
You name it. Sometimes the bridge breaks. Sometimes it's the wind can be a big one. Sometimes it's construction. But as soon as that closes, we're cut off from everyone.
Yeah.
You've
been to Russia. I think you were in Moscow, you said, but St. Petersburg has the drawbridges. There's the Vasilyevsky Ostrov, which is the island.
Yeah. I know
in
you're talking about.
the city center, right? And they're always opening and closing. And those things are like the American Express billing cycle that you mentioned. They're open or they're closed. If you don't make it,
you don't make it.
You didn't make it. So
I kind of appreciated the matter of factness of that over there in Russia. Just like they would just shrug their shoulders, like that's just you don't no whining.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. Like that saying, like reality is whatever is the case, right? Like whatever is happening, that's what is.
It toughens you up, and not that I want to hang out with those people every night, but I found that really appealing.
Most people do. At first, they're taken aback and they're offended, and they're like, "Wait, this person is actually telling me exactly what they think, and I don't have to worry about what they're actually thinking."
No motives. No, it's like they're like true cowboys. They're just telling it how it is, and they don't care what you think. By the way, I really.
And by the way, the fair side of it is they invite you to do the same. It's not like they're sensitive.
No, completely. Yeah, I had such. I mean, now I don't know if I'll ever go back there again. And I went just enough times that I don't really feel the need to go back to Moscow. I never thought I would go as many times as I did, to be honest. It was odd how
many times did you go in those years?
At least seven times.
Wow.
I went a lot. I did this route where I would go to Europe and I would play around Europe, especially in England, and then I would hop on a plane and play in Croatia, and then from to Zagreb, and then from Zagreb I would go to Moscow, and I would then over time I would get more and more gigs, and these were kind of like the wild times. This was like 2000,
mid
2001 to 2006, and so there was a lot of money.
Yeah,
there was a lot of black market. They were kind of opulence was like at a fever pitch high, and so you would just go into these places that felt like out of a movie.
Yeah,
like just the level.
And they were, and that's exactly the time when it happened. The 90s and then the 2000s when, everything got denationalized and privatized, all the government interests, and so there were people who all of a sudden owned, elements of the military industrial complex. They owned, land. They owned gold mines. They owned oil fields.
One guy would own all the power. It's just like you're like, what? Who? No.
And you meet him and you go to his house and he's like, I supply power to the entire country.
And those guys are usually so kooky. The guys, the real movers and shakers.
You're like, they have no business being there. Like,
they're super wild-eyed. You're like, you are a crazy dude.
Yeah.
And then the women are such a trip there. Like the whole Asian influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so they look like supermodels, but they look like they would punch you in the mouth. They're like so intensely angry in their eye contact. You're like, I'm not. I was more intimidated by the women than I was the men.
But then you'll sit down with them and they'll go into that Russian literature discussion that you had. They'll go for hours because it turns out he has 3 different master's degrees in something.
Totally. Yeah, no, it was such a trip trying to just kind of figure out which way was up there. And again, I went enough times where I started to figure stuff out. At the beginning of it, which was interesting, and it was more because after a while I started to choose more who I would hang out with. I would go to people's apartments uh, before an event or afterwards and hang out. And half of the room, I could see them staring at me because of their upbringing, their propaganda. No judgment on that. That their eyes looked pretty sinister at me. They
Yeah.
were really not happy that I was there. And then
I,
the other
I
half
mean,
were
yeah,
so excited that I was there. And so it was very like, yeah,
you're like a representation and a hologram of what they'd seen in the
yeah,
news, for the
yeah.
past 10 years, which has nothing to do with reality, that they're
No,
still,
I
you're
never
still
took
a
it
result of
personally.
a propaganda machine. You're there to, to
I
make them feel.
represent the enemy, the propaganda, the enemy. I am the enemy there, and they're still happy that I'm there. I guess they kept booking me, so obviously they liked it. But no, the best quote I had the first time I went hanging out like maybe 2 or 3 in the morning at the place that I was staying, so I wasn't really allowed to go to bed. I was just up hanging out with these guys before the night was because the Russians drink and stay up a long time.
Right. I'm
Yeah, like
familiar.
sometimes like
I've
you're like,
done it.
okay, it's sunny outside. It's tomorrow, and we sleep later. Don't worry, don't worry. And they
Yeah.
would just keep drinking.
Yeah.
Um, but the famous quote I had is I was talking with someone just like I'm talking now, and this woman interrupted me. She's like, "Your fucking accent makes me want to kill you." And I just started cracking up laughing because I was like,
That just
"That is
means
hilarious."
that just means she wanted to drag you into the bedroom.
It can mean so many things. Yeah, the
Yeah.
interpretations
Which
of that.
those two
But
aren't,
just
aren't
like
too far apart from one another, but
her
yeah.
level of candor, I was just like so amused with. And the fact that she interrupted me to tell me that she wanted to kill me because of my American accent.
Yeah. How many girls in the United States would you have to talk to get to that level of
Never,
honesty?
never. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of bar you'd have to go to have those kinds of conversations. Yeah, I mean, now I guess
People
maybe.
just go, "Hey, your accent's really cute."
Oh
Right there,
no, yeah, no,
your accent makes me want to fucking murder you.
I know, I know. I don't like to hate on our country because there's a lot of great things, but some of I prefer personality traits from other countries would be the nice way to say it. I prefer
Yeah,
that a little.
it's just it's a wider range and it seems more genuine, just on balance. Not that it's everybody, and there's some
It's
disingenuous people there and some really honest people here, but in general, I think you're right. As a
it feels naive here. People are really
Yeah,
naive,
yeah.
and that's okay. Just the culture is naive, and the kind of holdover from the '50s, that earnestness and like, hey, that's really neat, and kind
Yeah,
of like the Buddy
yeah,
Holly
that's
type
super
era.
groovy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody.
It's so immature, and there's just not a level of kind of
I mean, I think,
I don't know.
that's
It's
being
different.
sheltered is a part of it. I mean, there are a lot
Yeah,
of people that haven't really seen any kind of real hardship. They've heard about it.
yeah.
They're sort of pining for authenticity, for something. And so then they start making up, you know,
On
these
this, on that.
experiences for themselves to feel real. Whereas in reality, it's hard to wake up at 50 or 60 and realize that you've never really experienced anything or much of anything, which
Yeah.
is,
Hey, I let me respond to this real quick. I need
yeah.
this is for my bean delivery right now, and I don't want to mess it up. As soon as we get off the phone today, I got to go unload 6 pallets of coffee.
You have time? Are you good on time, or do
Oh
you
no,
need
no,
to?
I'm good. As soon as I do this, I'm all good again.
All right.
I'm surprised this guy's picked up our coffee so many times, but every time he asks me what the address of the place is, and I'm
Can
like,
you can you just respond same?
"Don't you?" Yeah, say yeah. Well, that would be the impolite way to do it. I'm not going to do that, but yes, that's what I prefer to do.
Take your
Hold
time.
on a second. Let me just get this done. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Uh, yeah.
Well,
Back to go ahead.
yeah, yeah, no, I was just saying, we can back to, you're sort of, you come back from Nairobi, right,
Yep.
and you got $100 to your name, all debts cleared, no
Yep.
real kind of defined direction or purpose, but you're off to Port Townsend to reconnect with your mom, who you haven't spent time with for a while, and that's the end of the agenda, right? Or
That's
just
it. I made a conscious
no,
choice.
the agenda is no agenda, right?
Yeah,
Clean slate.
it was like kind of one of those philosophical whatever things where I was like, the strokes of luck that I've had are even kind of jaw dropping or fascinating to me. Where I was raised in a an alternative lifestyle, but still really just a middle class suburban lifestyle at the end of the day. But that stuff doesn't seem to apply to me, and it sounds like bragging. And when you even asked me to do this and you asked me to do a bio which gave you this information to talk about, I have a hard time talking about what's just the facts of my life and not sounding like I'm bragging. And so I struggle with how to share
Sure.
that stuff with people, but it's just my experience. So
You
yeah.
can answer it in any way you see fit. We're just shooting the shit,
Oh,
it's
no,
not.
no, yeah, it's just a funny thing because you just sound like most people's lives compare. I've lived a few different lives compared to what most people have had in their experience.
I think me recounting it is making you realize just how wild a ride you've had.
How wild of a ride it really has been, yeah. But to that point of like reflect personal reflection about you seem to be able to get to do whatever you want, and it hasn't really brought you the happiness that you think you're looking for, whatever it is, the satisfaction. So I made a conscious choice, hearing your listeners, everything that happened to me before, I'm sure I could have got back on the poker table and probably found a new source of inspiration or luck. But I was
Mhm,
just burnt out on it. And I was more fascinated about the process that led me to always be being given these opportunities when most people just don't. It doesn't matter you go to college, it doesn't matter that you work really hard for your boss. Life just isn't like this for most people unless you're like independently wealthy, and then you just get to buy your way into any of these things. But this was never money based, this was just my life. um
mhm.
so I chose not to choose anything, and I wanted to see what would happen. And I basically, once again, I was being kind of rebellious or flippant, where it's like to the universe, the cosmos, like, fine, I'm not going to choose anything. I'm going to see what happens when I don't choose, and I don't press the button. And obviously, I know some sense of self preservation where I needed a place to stay, and I had no money. So in theory, at that time, how it felt is I was moving home to my mom's
Mhm.
after all this stuff happened to me. But the truth was I was making a conscious choice to move home to my mom. I could have done any number of other things. It wasn't like that was my only opportunity. And so I drove up here, and
Had you been here before? I mean, had you been
yeah,
in Washington, or you have? No?
yeah,
Never.
yeah. No, no. My mom moved up here from the Bay Area, from the Napa Valley in the mid '90s, and so I
Okay.
had come up a few times for Christmas. I had no interest in living up here whatsoever. This place was just slow, slow, slow.
Right.
And it took a long time to get here. I was like, this place is so far away from the airport.
It
And,
and in your
and I
mind, this is
It's
just
the end
not
of
a
the
fun place
road.
to
Yeah, I mean,
be.
it kind of is. If you look at a map, Port Townsend kind of is at the end of the road.
It's
Um,
the end of the logging railroad. It's the last
it,
stop.
it's the last stop. Yeah. Um, so yeah. So when I came up here, I didn't really have a plan. I toyed with the idea of going to law school and applying. And I think that was more of a chip on my shoulder to what happened to me before, where maybe I would kind of go get him back, and I would become a lawyer, and I could become an
That's a
asshole too.
little bit of a change.
It's
Yeah, I would say you
a
becoming
spite
a lawyer.
profession. I was to become a lawyer out of spite, basically. So
Mhm.
I had some resolved issues about what had happened to me, and I guess basically wanted the artillery to fight back, but no real passion for the industry at all. I don't know what kind of lawyer I would have been, but I was just poking around, and I ended up farm sitting this farm that my mom's partner, she was like their tax preparer, was like, yeah, they have this farm and they're going out of town for a death in the family. Do you want to take care of their farm? And I was like, I'm not a farmer. I don't know
Farm
how to do it.
sitting. Wow, what a term. So this is when you
Yeah, yeah,
look after someone's farm while they're gone.
yeah, yeah. And all it really was to make sure people didn't come onto the property and chop some wood and keep the like
One
150
of
year
those
old
like big
house.
sprawling Port Townsend
Yeah,
properties,
yeah.
Jefferson County, typical. Yeah.
Properties. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess originally this house, it's called the Palindrome. It's pretty famous actually. was the house of ill repute out of town.
Mm.
So
It was a brothel back in the day.
it was a brothel back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
It was right out of town. And the
The
funny thing was,
rising sun.
there was 8 bathrooms
Mhm.
inside this place, and I was just like, "This is a lot of
There's only
bathrooms."
one type of structure back in that day that had that many
It
bathrooms.
had that many facilities, yeah, because
Yeah.
each woman or man needed to wash up afterwards.
Yeah.
So I was staying there. Is kind of, I didn't have I don't think I even had a laptop at that point. I was going to the library a lot and checking out books, like I was doing it on the boat, and I was just sort of like escapism, just escaping and not really choosing anything and just waiting what's next. And what happened next was in the middle of the night, a couple weeks into me staying there, my mom called me from her house and said that her partner had died suddenly in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that basically was,
While you're in Port Townsend, this
yeah. While I
happens.
was there, yeah, I happened to be there, so I hopped in my car, raced right over there. The police were already there. Everyone was doing what you do in that situation, and just kind of consoling my mom, and we were both in shock about this. Is so sudden, and there wasn't any. She was sick the night before, and she happened to be diabetic, and she
Mhm.
forgot to take her insulin because she wasn't feeling well, and she went into diabetic shock and died in the middle of the night. Yeah. So it was, couldn't be any more sudden, or just, yeah. And so after that, I realized I wasn't going anywhere. And my mom was never so great at finances, and she needed some help. And this was after the 2008 bubble, so their house was kind of upside down, and just a lot of financial stuff going on. And so I went on Craigslist, and the first job I saw was for a barista at a cafe called Better Living Through Coffee.
Literally, like you open Craigslist, that's the first job.
First job, only job I applied to. An hour later, I got a response to come and interview the next day, and the next day I had the job.
And so you go into Better Living Through Coffee. You go.
Yeah, it was very different than it is now.
I mean, talk about when you walk in. Like, I mean, I imagine the place, but maybe for the listeners a little bit. It's very iconic, very scenic.
Yeah.
What are you feeling and seeing when you first walk in? What do you remember?
Beautiful view, great location, quite disheveled, and not well managed. But at
Mhm.
that point, this was my gut reaction just because of my background of working. But I didn't care about any of that. I just was getting a part time at a coffee shop. I wasn't really translating it in that way. I think I quickly saw that there was a lot of things that were happening there that weren't really conducive to being successful.
Was it busy? I mean, was it a
No,
popular place? No.
no. Actually, that's another story. So fast forward to me working there, and the relationship with the two owners, the partners, was a little too personal, and a lot of their family stuff were kind of crossing barriers and lines that shouldn't have been in the workplace at all.
So you're
Uh,
just a barista at that point, or
I'm
are you
just a barista.
managing?
I'm just working there. But me
How
being
many
me,
people work at Better Living Through Coffee at that time?
oh, 4.
4. Okay.
4, yeah. Um, and I ended up staying through the winter to help my mom out. And after that, I approached who later would become my partner, the originator, true founder of Better Living Through Coffee, plus all of the coffee. This guy named Michael Adana, who's
Michael,
since,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, you met him, since retired. And we got along. We got along really well. And I was like, maybe I should go do something else. And he was like, no, please stay. Like, so oddly enough, we weren't thinking about me coming in on the coffee shop. We were thinking about me about doing something different, and everyone walking away from the coffee shop.
Mhm.
And no one was making any real money. There was another place in town that was a lot more popular, and we were kind of second fiddle to all of that. And at that time, there wasn't a clear road to any type of success. But then it dawned on me, because of the personal problems he was having with his original partner. I was like, maybe I should just buy her out. And a
Mhm.
light went on for him. He's like, yes, that's great. Let's do that.
And
And
become a part owner of it rather
I'm a
than leave.
a partner,
So you
50-50
either
partner.
had to go up or go down or leave, but you
Or leave.
couldn't.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it was time for a change. Obviously, I couldn't just keep doing that. At that point, I had met my future wife, and she was pregnant.
Hmm.
So I had to make moves. I couldn't just stay still anymore. Suddenly, what seemed like it was a 3-hour tour was me, stuck on Gilligan's Island, so to speak. I wasn't going anywhere. I was just sort of I was here, and this is where I was going to live.
So
And
this
my
is
mom,
like within 6 months or a year that
like about a year, yeah, a little less
within
than
a
a year.
year, you go from
Like
responding
10
to an
months.
ad in Craigslist for an entry level barista. A year
Yeah,
later, you're buying out one of the owners.
I might not want the owners. Yeah, life happens while you're making plans.
Right.
Um, Yeah, again, back to my original point of like not choosing anything. And then I guess I made a choice to apply for this job because I needed to stick around and help my mom. And again, the first thing that I chose, the first girl I asked out is the one that I married. So it's a very unique thing where I don't really get to shop around very much.
Well, you make probably just make strong intentional choices, and by that they end up being the right choices. I don't know how to explain it. Obviously,
Yeah,
if I could,
I'm
I'd
making
be.
into that. Yeah, they become whatever it is because of my sheer
The
willpower.
energy that you put behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. So to that point, I had, I borrowed a bunch of money from a family that was interested in who I guess I charmed enough that they lent me the seed money to buy out the other partner, and I wasn't that comfortable with it because this place wasn't really clocking a lot of dollars at that point. But for whatever reason, similar to going to Nairobi or getting into music, I was just all in, and this is what I was going to do. So I borrowed the money, I bought her out, and that the night before I was officially the owner, one of the owners the next day, my dad happened to be in town and we all went out to dinner to celebrate, this big endeavor that I was embarking on. And the next morning I went in there. And remember, I was working 4 or 5 days a week. I was there all the time. I walked in the door and the place was fucking packed.
Really?
More
Just
on like a
you
Wednesday or a
didn't do
Thursday.
anything different. Just you're
I
the
didn't
owner.
do a damn thing. I just showed up the next day and was officially the owner, and the place was packed. And honestly, it never stopped being packed.
Can you explain that?
Nope, nope, not at all.
Wow.
Nope, nope. I had to lean into it and actually support what was changing and actually keep it going. Just it's like just because if you're doing a food cart at a festival and you had a great weekend, doesn't mean that you have the wherewithal to keep doing it every week, every day. And so I had to learn how to do that. And it was a completely different monster at that point where we needed more staff and we needed staff that we could trust. And there was a lot of management issues in that place. And at first, I went from being a coworker to being an owner, and that was tough for some people that I was working with. And so there was a lot of stuff to untangle and figure out over the next couple of years. Plus, my partner at the time, he wasn't really interested in doing it anymore. So he made me
Mhm.
the de facto manager and kind of just let me do all the hard work, which led to about three
As
and a half,
as a
4 years.
junior partner should, in some
Yeah, yeah.
sense.
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right. In hindsight, it didn't feel that way at the time. I was a bit resentful, but you got to learn your stripes. You got to learn how to do all this, and that's exactly what I did. Enough so that I went back to the same family and I borrowed enough money to buy him out, and I never looked
Because
back.
he
And
then transitioned to the roasting business, and he bought a roaster or started a roaster that sold you the beans.
yes, yes, he was already roasting the coffee the whole time, and he was more interested in just doing that.
Yeah.
And so, he basically, I bought him out. That afforded him enough money to build the building that we're now the roasting facility is in, and and I was his best customer. And Yeah, so that's that part of the place. Only became more and more successful as the years rolled on, and I got better at it. And trials and tribulations for sure. I realized that I was struggling with being around so many people personally. In
Mhm.
such a small space, and I had some kind of introvert qualities that were coming out. So that was the beginning of me investing in people to help me, and AKA leave me alone. I just
Yeah,
didn't
that
didn't want to
was.
be there. I didn't want to be the face of this business anymore. And so I found great people that I could trust, and I basically bribed them to leave me alone.
I mean, it's a chaotic, busy energy in there. Like
Yeah,
having to be exposed to it every day. 8, 10 hours a day is probably going to overwhelm anyone. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're the owner or not.
Yeah. Now we have systems in place that kind of steam valves, so to speak, that even on the busiest summer day, Labor Day weekend, Christmas, whatever, that it's manageable now. We kind of know how to gauge and how to dance through all of that. But at that time, there was none of that stuff, and so it was very kind of like hitting your shins on things all the time, and just a lot of fumbles. But as that grew and I got better at it, after a while, kind of the past faded away. That original story of the owners there just kind of was too far in the rear view. That was, the place opened originally in 2009, and I showed up in 2012, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
2026. So that, I've been here longer than anyone else at this point, and that started to just become the narrative on what
You're the face of it, yeah. Now for
I am
and
now.
maybe the
Yeah.
only face, but so you're drinking from a high fire hose. You're learning by doing. You kind of have it dialed in, and then COVID happens.
And then COVID happened. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, just as soon as I got good at it, I got
Yeah.
clipped. Yeah, they just take the wind.
Well, the good news is it wasn't discriminating. Everybody
Yeah.
got clipped. But how did you handle it? I mean, I remember you got real good at paperwork and put some systems in place. But
Yeah, yeah. The biggest thing to take away from that in hindsight was that I I remember talking with one of the bakers, basically when that guy, kind of ground zero guy in at SeaTac Tacoma, the guy, the number one guy who came here and started the spread. I mentioned, like, for some reason this feels different than the other sensationalism we hear in news. You think I should be worried? And he's like, nah. And then
nah.
fast forward 2 weeks later, everything amplified quite quickly. And because of how busy the place was, I closed weeks before I needed to. I closed to
Mm-hmm.
myself. I just stopped, and I didn't have a plan out, and things weren't looking great. And that same baker, it's a funny story. It kind of in the middle of the night just disappeared. He just
Mm-hmm.
drove off to go take care of himself, which I blame no one at that point. Everyone has to do whatever they need to do to take care of themselves.
Yeah, it
And
was every man for himself there.
no, there's no rule book on what was happening at that point, as we all know. But luckily, we had the square outside and the big deck, and so we were the first ones to be able to reopen with a lot of considerations. And we were open outside for
And you were
much
serving
longer.
out of that window, I think, right out the facing the square.
Well, we did that too, but no, we set up a whole umbrella and an outdoor kind of cafe on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the drinks would be delivered through that window, and then the person out there at the register. So we were an outdoor operation, and basically that whole square was our cafe, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, luckily I'm good at filling out forms, and that gave us the seed money to carry on through those trying times. And yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to
Oh,
kind of
you
get
were
back.
around me at that point. We knew
Yeah,
each other at
yeah.
that
I
point.
mean, we were talking, and I mean,
Yeah,
you had over the years. I mean, that I've known you, you had ideas,
yeah.
points of transition, and
Oh,
sometimes
I'll be
points of
honest. I wanted to
induced by
sell that
stress.
place more than once. I've wanted to sell that place, feeling overwhelmed.
But you've
But
also
whatever.
wanted to grow, expand, and you did expand, right? I mean, maybe like you had the
You know,
idea of pour over
at one
stands.
point, Netflix was trying to sell themselves to Blockbuster. So there you go. Or
It,
Google tried to sell themselves to Yahoo for $1 million. So that's how that
it's
stuff
not
works.
permanent, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I doubled down and bought the roasting business. Kind of the what is it? Cut out the middleman. What's that term?
Vertical
Lateral.
integration.
Yeah, vertical integration. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And basically, you're not only the bartender, you're also the guy selling you the liquor. Which is the way you want it.
I mean, which is in the coffee business. I mean, there are successful retail coffee businesses, but at some point you have to own the product or be in control of it to some degree if you're going to reach the next level of success. Is that accurate or?
Yes, completely. So you're at the mercy of people, especially with the times that we're in now, or we're just kind of getting through. You're not going to like what the third party does on your behalf and how they
Mhm.
control the situation. Half of the time, hopefully, to no fault of their own, but just simply like, oh, we got to do this. And so suddenly, you know, if you go to a steakhouse, a world famous steakhouse, you're going to expect your steak to taste like it did last time, for the most part. If you keep
Mhm.
ordering the same, whatever. But the same with the coffee, it needs to be consistently. People have after a while, you become a destination. People have memories. They have expectations. And you
Mhm.
can't just start changing it up because, oh, we can't use that anymore because of this. It's going to start, denting your armor as far as people's experience there. And we're like Denny's, rain, sleet, or snow. We are open. We are always
Yeah.
open. And that is honestly, whoever's listening, that is the biggest part of success. Is just consistency, day in, day out, to the point ad nauseum, to the point where you hate doing it. But that's how you actually become successful over time.
It's
You know.
it's kind of like I sometimes I see that level of consistency. Like I see it in U.S. in mail delivery. Like
Yeah,
it's
people come
seemingly
out.
like a couple envelopes or pieces of paper every day, but it arrives every day except
Yeah,
Sunday, and if you put it on your table, 6 days later you have a pile of mail, and then
yeah.
another week later you have like it's so consistent. And this may not be the best example, but
No,
it
no,
does
no.
demonstrate rain or shine consistency, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's the triggers. That to me is, over the years, I could have kept a lot more of the money that was coming through the door. But I early on decided after my needs were met, which is it never seems like it's enough. But ultimately, what my needs are met is you can't keep all the money, and you got to reinvest it in the people that are working there so that you can be consistent. And so and it's not just simply that you buy the best refrigerator, the best espresso machine, or that you got this new manager that's coming in with all this experience. Sometimes those are the worst ones, actually.
Yeah.
You really, yeah, people that are supposed to come like save you. Oh, steer clear of those people. They're the worst. Or people that have like this.
They have such strong ideas and
Oh, yes. It,
preconceived notions.
the best example of that is if you want to be a helicopter pilot for the police force, they will not entertain hiring people that were helicopter pilots before.
They will not hire a helicopter pilot that
You
for
don't
the
get
fire
to be
department.
you have to learn their way. And
Yeah.
that's how I hire, that's why I hire within now. And it has to be enough incentive based. Um, the way that one of my managers talked about it with me after she kind of like, saw which way the wind was blowing, like, hey, this is actually a really good job. And she's like, you're really good at keeping me pleasantly surprised. I'm like surprised at like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. Oh
Yeah.
wow, I wasn't expecting that. And so there is a degree of enchanting people around you, not in some kind of like self-serving or slimy way, but I got a lot of hotel points because of all the stuff. I'm a restaurant. I gift that to people. They get to go away for the weekend. I'm not the one always going places, and they don't depend upon it or expect it, but I find different creative ways to make them feel appreciated.
Hmm.
And really what that affords me over time is that place will be open 7 fucking days a week because of that nature where they truly have my back, not only because they want to and they trust and then we appreciate one another, is they like it. It works for them.
So it's been a few years, right? And so I mean, what is your role in the business today? And
What is my what?
role, like what's your
Oh,
day to day like? I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah. I more manage the managers. I rarely am on the schedule there. I sometimes put myself on there so that I don't feel like I'm untouchable.
yeah.
And when I
So
do the first
you just make a cameo on the floor.
sort of, but no, it's scheduled so people know it, and it's usually only a few hours, and it'll be when it's really busy, and I will always do the dishes or take out the trash.
Hmm.
And I will ask the manager what they want help with, and I do not act like I own the place at all.
You will
And
fit in for
I will
whatever position you're scheduled for. You're
I will
gonna.
try to be the best, lowest rung employee that I have, and be that example, because really that's what I'm showing is the example of humility, and that I don't come in pounding my chest ever, ever.
I
You know,
mean, you got to lead by example, right? Is that the most effective way to lead people, or I mean, do you have to, do as I say, not as I do, doesn't work, right?
the example, because of my role being removed now, is the example set by the people that know me and ultimately really work for me, and that's come. I believe in people more than they believe in themselves sometimes. And when I have like a team meeting, if something kind of goes off the rails, like someone, a new hire, quit on the job and wrote a really nasty email to everyone saying that like the standards of what it takes to work here are too high and the expectations are too great. And honestly, I see that as a compliment. But saying that, when I took the uh, manager aside, I took two of them, so it wasn't just one. The two, the kind of they're cohorts. They work together a lot, but they're both leads. And the way that I preface it, as opposed to yelling at him and saying like you got to fix this or whatever, I said, "So, do you feel threatened by me ever?" And I
Mm-hmm.
was just quiet, and they were, at least they seem honest. They were like, "No, not at all." And I was like, "Right, but maybe unbeknownst to you, I am managing you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel threatened by me." And so those things are really, they can be pulled, they can be really far apart from one another, but ultimately we're getting where we're trying to go. And there's a style change. And really, later down the road, the one that really kind of like ran into this issue where it's basically her style was being, taking pot shots. She said, really what you taught me was to chill the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
He was holding on too tight, trying to do too good of a job, and it was rubbing people the wrong way. And since the other managers or owners, they kind of flub that, and they try to like, it doesn't need to be negative. The reinforcement, it really doesn't at all.
Yeah, I mean, people need to have agency, and you need to hold things with a light grip, right? There's always a range,
Yeah.
and so I think especially people in charge, they need to feel like they're trusted and they're there. They're in a leadership role for a reason. If you're micromanaging them, why are they in a leadership
Why
role?
are they there? Why are you paying them all this money? You know that story about Nordstrom's, right? Where the manual for employees consisted of that, we hired you, we believe in our hires, and we got your back. And
Yeah,
that was it. That's
I
basically
didn't know that, but is that in
that's the
there? Is that
moral
in
of the
their
story.
policy?
It was just a one-page thing, not some huge thing. It's saying like, we believe in the choices that we make and the hires that we make, which means we believe in you, which means we're here for you.
Which means we don't have to put forward a
Oh, we don't
100-page
gotta,
manual because we believe.
that falls back on me, the owner, that I made a bad hire. The way that I see it now is I'm slow to hire and I'm slow to fire, and that's a
And
good.
that's where you invest the time is on the front end to hire the right people, and then you don't have to hire and fire them every day. You
No,
just
no, that creates a
right.
horrible culture. I fire someone maybe like once every 2 or 3 years,
Hmm.
and it's
Is it
usually
you really? I mean, is that your turn cycle once every
yeah,
2 to 3 years? Wow.
yeah,
In a
yeah.
retail setting, man, that's
I
phenomenal.
know. Well, people quit.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's expected. I'm already, because they trust me enough. They tell me that, hey, in a few months I'm going to go do something else, and we wish them the best.
But they let you know, and you have an open enough relationship to where they feel comfortable coming to you with
There's
that.
no underhanded behavior necessary. It's just, if you take that component away of it, it really kind of like loosens up the room. You know, people are
I mean,
relaxed.
you're living what you preach.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It allows them to come
leader.
back too. If their endeavor doesn't work out, they can see me as an asset to come back to, and leave on a good note. And I'm not hoping that they end up having to come back, because that means whatever they were trying to do didn't work out, or sometimes their life changes and this is exactly what they need. But I'd always want to leave the door open. I've never gotten mad at anyone for leaving ever. You know.
And that's why they see you as an asset and not an asshole. So that's
Yep.
the right.
That's a good way to put it. That's what it's gonna say on my gravestone. Yeah, yeah.
So Port Townsend Coffee Roasters, you were kind enough to send me some product. I really appreciate it. I can lead and say, I've got the wholesale quantity.
Nice.
But I
Right.
think I called it the Pablo Escobar quantity package, but I got some stuff
Enjoy it.
behind here, and I don't know, maybe you can talk us through briefly some of the beans that you're working with. So Dante's Tornado,
Yep.
Loop de Loop,
Yep.
and Pantomime.
You want to go
What,
one at a
what?
time?
Yeah, maybe just give us a run through of what's
Okay.
what.
So the Dante's is more of a medium roast. It can be used for espresso. It's more of your standard cup of coffee. Someone that just wants a good tasting cup of coffee would probably enjoy that. It's not too dark. It's a Goldilocks type coffee.
Go okay. Where's it? Where are the beans from?
That is, we only have a couple different mixtures, and that's one of them. So that's kind of our proprietary one that we don't really share. It's one of our recipes for Coca-Cola.
Okay.
We're going to go to details, but the continents are listed at the bottom of it.
Are you generally pretty? I mean, how in touch are you? Like kind of down. Speaking of vertical integration, how low do you go? You talk to the growers? Do you travel to the area? I mean, where do you? What's your touch point?
Again, that kind of goes back to that whole cork sniffing thing that I don't really subscribe to. Getting to know the farmers, that sounds beautiful, and what a cool relationship. But the truth of how this business works, that's just PR.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you own a boat and a shipping container, and you're going in, you're making your own co-op. These brokers, we're all getting the beans from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Actually functioning true in the coffee business, grinding it out, making cups of coffee, or selling it to people that are making cups of coffee, or selling it to grocery stores or customers. We all go to the same warehouse to get our beans. I've seen it. There's more than one, but there's not that many. So people have this allure of like Juan the Farmer and like this next thing. It's not to say that you don't have access to those beans, but that's not how a truly functioning fluid business would work. That's
Commercially, that's not how it operates.
That's not how it works. There's lots of great farms out there. And if you're trying to take a free vacation as a tax write-off to these countries, more power to you, and you should totally go. Have a great time. But I never really saw the value in it.
But it's not any more than the fish market. They're not fishing in the Puget Sound for the fish. They're buying it wholesale, probably somewhere, right? The romance doesn't always align with the reality of the business.
Fish. The shelf life is so short on those that there is a more one-on-one relationship with the fisherman and the guy that's at the down by the wharf, down by the pier. But with coffee, it's kind of a slower, so people, I'll get back to the roast in a minute, but just to kind of like cut through a lot of the nonsense around that. All of these beans are coming from big diesel, huge boats, shipping containers, and they're all sitting, and there's oil and gas being pumped into all of these, and there's no way around that. It's just the way it is. And so having them sit in this warehouse off gassing is actually highly recommended. And there's no way about getting around that. They have to come on these huge boats, and the rigors of all of that. It's just the way it is. And these warehouses.
So you're saying there's this environmental footprint that we're not really,
It's just
drinking our fairly grown, fair trade coffee actually creates.
I am the crunchiest one of the bunch. We are one of the few fair trade, truly organic coffee choices. We only do that. So I'm the one that should be preaching that faster than anyone, so I could sell you a bag of coffee. But with the amount of effort, time, money, and oversight that it takes to actually do all of this, the romance has been sucked out of the room for me. I get audited every year by the police.
I appreciate the honesty and the transparency, man. That's why
this is not how the stuff actually works. And I can say that with such resolve or confidence is because I am going the extra mile. I am paying more money for all of this. I am getting audited. I do have to fill out all these forms. I am accountable for the choices that I make. And so I can say with full confidence that it's not as fancy as you think it's at all.
You're having to do all these things, but and we're probably bursting a lot of people's bubble, doing it. But
I
so
think
be
it's
it.
good that they know the truth of it. If someone's actually trying, which we really are trying. I mean, eye contact to everyone. We really are trying, and we're paying a lot of money to make sure that these beans are this and they're fair trade and they're organic, and fine tooth comb is what we have to go through to do it. But the people that maybe aren't doing all of that stuff, they're so quick to spin a story that's just not based on reality.
I hear you.
So the loop is the one that we use in-house for our espresso. That's kind of our golden boy, the one that everyone drinks. And our orders for that are like
$6 in your drip, or I mean, this is your main Americano drip.
We make espresso, and if you come to the cafe, if you just ask for a cup of coffee and you're not specific, you get that one. The pantomime, the other one, that's our darkest roast. And it's very popular for a certain type of taste profile. Just a little backstory on that one. We literally, it's a fire hazard when we make that one. We have to turn the
The
roaster off.
pantomime?
Yeah, it's so hot that we actually have to trick the roaster to let us do it,
Wow.
because it's burning it. It's too hot, and so the roaster has mechanisms to shut it down, and we have to do this little trick to get it to turn back on.
And so why do that in terms of flavor,
Well,
or like
see,
what's the
you try it, and if you really like dark roast coffee, Vienna roast dark coffee, then that's your guy. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, seniors really respond to it. It has the least amount of caffeine in it because it's been in the roaster for the longest. Yeah. All right. What's
All right.
next?
And you got a decaf that you're doing that I imagine is pretty popular.
Decaf is very popular. It's burnt just like the pantomime, and again, very popular with the seniors. It's people. The feedback we get is that I can't believe it's decaf. So yeah, it's good.
There you go. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you say, what was the most famous the butter commercial? Can't believe it's not
yeah,
butter,
it's not
right?
better. Yeah,
Can't believe it's not decaf.
yeah.
And you got Sumatra.
Sumatra, that's a single origin. It comes from all kinds of different farms. Just depends on who's got the best deal for. See, as soon as you are only ordering fair trade organic, it really puts the guardrails on about what you can buy. So you have to wait until this stuff is available, and you have to buy in bulk. So if I can get a great backstory or tasting
Yeah.
notes seem really attractive to me, that's great. But it's more about with those circumstances, what's available. You know,
Hmm.
yeah,
I like the labeling too. I mean, so this is looks like
it's
it's
the
light
light
roast
roast.
Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice yellow label.
yeah. Yeah, you'll notice with the ones with the continents or the countries, it's some riff off of their flag.
It's a what?
The color coding is a riff off of their flag colors, their
Oh,
country
is
colors.
it? Okay. No, I didn't pick up on
Maybe
that.
like like they won't use as much yellow, but it's all their flag colors. So,
By the
yeah,
way, I just want to say, this is the box that Ben sent me. Ben, thank you. You're super generous.
yeah.
And then we'll give some of it away to the listeners and
Let's do
let them make up their mind. But man, what a solid product! And uh, the name, I mean, your general name, Better Living Through Coffee. Obviously, you inherited that name, but what does it mean to you? And like, what's the brand stand for?
I always thought it was a little long in the tooth. It's a lot to
Yeah.
spit out, a lot of syllables, a lot of words. But people seem to really respond to it. I think it has to do with the better living through chemistry, the DuPont, the Tupperware back in the 50s.
Okay.
Really,
We just keep cutting down on the romance, man.
well, I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you the truth.
I'm
Uh,
kidding. I'm kidding. We
but the
want
truth of the
reality.
matter
That's
is,
all.
we built it up where better living through whatever actually is really appealing. And the funny thing is when you actually are trying to do the things that people are saying that they're doing, it's not very romantic. It's just hard
Yeah.
work. And that's just the facts of it. So, only serving organic food at the coffee shop means that people that have dietary needs or people that have children don't have to worry about what they order there. They can just order whatever they want, and they know that it's quality food. But it comes at great cost to us, financially as well as effort. And the whole thing that better living through, you just insert whatever you like. Better living through chai. We make chai. We make chocolates,
Mhm.
cookies. With that name is very kind of you can attach whatever you want to the end of it,
Mhm.
and for us to do it right, it means that we're trying really hard. So the better part of it, I guess someday I should shoot for best,
Mhm.
not just
Well,
be
I mean, it
better.
certainly sounds like you are kind of living your best life and arrived at
Yeah,
it through this brand. It's very
and
fitting to you. But I will share it
yeah,
with you like in the spirit of transparency and people wanting story. Um, the real story is well, once you've been in the trenches is more exciting than whatever brand story
yeah,
people want, right? What the one that they pine for. As my background is in retail and
yep,
hospitality, and I owned a family owned bakery where we we invented a lot of the part of the success was we just invented a lot of the things we made on the fly, right? And
Yeah.
we created something new, a hybrid product, and it's based in Eastern European and Russian
Right.
and Scandinavian cuisine, but it's not that old recipe, it's not that the one, 100-year-old recipe that everybody kind of
It's not dusty.
wants, right? And people always try like, well, how did you come up with this, with this item? It has rhubarb in it, or it has a different ingredient that they haven't seen before, or don't often see. And they want the story of, my grandma was escaping the Russian Revolution and was swimming across the river, and the only thing she brought was this recipe. And then it made it across the ocean, and now we're making it the same way for 150 years. It's not the case. I was just baking something one day, and it was myself or my parents or somebody who would work in there and said, hey, let's try this. And actually, this recipe, it's not even a real recipe. It's about 17 days old. Right. It was invented 17 days ago. You're trying it now. It sounds like you like it. That's the story, right?
Yeah. Well, you were invented by the grandma that swam through the ocean.
I was. Yeah. And she gave me the
creativity. The story's still valid to that degree, where it's like you had, they had to come from the old country to get here. And so the ethos of that. But no, I understand exactly what you're saying.
But the wild thing is that the real story is that we're here by all this collision of all these million bits of kind of story and pieces of the puzzle, and we're here making this item for you. Was it a recipe from an old book and that I saved? No, it's not.
No,
it just is.
None of this. I would not be talking to you if I hadn't applied to a Craigslist ad.
Yeah. No, exactly. And isn't that a crazy part of the story, right? And so
funny how life happens, yeah. And then then one other story I'll share with you, because I got to go pretty soon, is so the reason why I really had kismet spark with my old partner who was the roaster with all this and his recipes from the old country of Brooklyn, New York. He'd done it for about 35 years before he retired. I took one sip of his coffee. First time I took a sip, I happened to be in front of him at the cafe, and I took a sip, and I was like, I told you about Pete's coffee, and I'm like, hey, this tastes like Pete's coffee from the 70s. And he lit up. He was so excited. He's like, yes. Finally,
that's what I was going for.
Someone knows what I'm doing. And we hit it off from day one, because I answered the question that, no one seemed to ever kind of like land on with him. Was that this tastes like, and he's like, not the Pete's now, but the original Pete's. I'm like, yeah, no, I live down the street from him. And he's like, okay. And that's what this started all off, is because
you connected on that much deeper level.
And true coffee roasters, like hardcore guys, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm the first one to say, this isn't me. I own the business and I have the recipes, and I pay people really well to be passionate about it, but it's not personally my role in the business whatsoever. So I'm the wrong person to talk to at the cocktail party about it. Yeah. I only know what I know, but I pay people that do know, and I'm so happy they work for me.
Well, Ben, I mean, I think you and I are both liable to say things, that people don't want to hear, or are looking for something different, or they want us to say something different. And so be it. That's why we're having this conversation here. I think there's value to it. Do you have a few minutes, or do you need to run?
I do need to run, because I just got a text. My beans are en route. How about this? Can I email you that song, and you can attach it to the end of this somehow?
I'll actually play it. I have it queued up, and I'll play it.
You play it. Yeah.
And you can. So this is what Ben. Maybe we give something a little bit about.
This is what I currently am doing with my free time.
You hearing it?
Yeah. Turn it up a little bit more. Yeah. It's me trying to sound like Pink Floyd. Because when I was younger, I liked Pink Floyd.
It's the outro to Wish You Were Here.
Yeah. That one, or that one I know exactly, or Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. But it's me trying to emulate that. The guitar player on it actually was an original member of Pink Floyd.
On this tune? Really?
Yeah. When they were a student band. This is a whole nother story. His name was Bob Close, Rado Close. And when I heard that he played the guitar on it, I just kind of went off on this tangent and built my own Pink Floyd song around it.
I had one more. Hang on a second. Oh, it's too big. The other one, the file that I wanted to upload was your kind of your ska reggae.
Right. Well, this is a good way to end. It just ended on a mellow note, you know. But yeah, not coming to a store near you. You won't be able to buy this.
You know what?
Just messing around on my own.
Perfect. Makes it all the better.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, this was fun. Thanks for chatting. You were right. It went by pretty fast. We're already at 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Filled up a lot of time. I wish we had a little more time, but I appreciate the time. You got to run. We got a day, but this was good. I mean, just briefly, where can people find your coffee?
Oh, okay. So really, ptcoffee.com is the easiest way to do it, to order online. We're trying to get out of the peninsula, but right now we're just in some Safeways, small grocery stores, and the co-op. So we're pretty small time. It's actually really hard to break into bigger corporate accounts, as I'm learning. And I'm also learning, I'm not sure if I want to. So if you want it, you should come to the cafe, Better Living Through Coffee, or you can try it online, ptcoffee.com.
Better Living Through Coffee, Port Townsend. Check it out. Ben, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll chat soon. Bye.
Bye.